Hello from the Bright Radiance and Collateral Light Starships. I am Will Pena, and this is my design diary. In the last week, I read some Mark Rosewater Making Magic articles. State of Design 2023 was really interesting. Doing the Aftermath was cool. The only one that I have a real note on is choosing your battles, which was interesting, not so far in terms of design. It's going through card by card for all the different battles that were released in the March of the Machine set. And I mean, it's cool design. It's a new card type. It's very cool to see. But the more interesting, inspiring thing to me was just all the different planes that Magic has created over the years. All the different planes that Magic's created over the years. Because each battle is from a different plane, and there's like 45 of them, and it's really inspiring to just see that you can honestly do whatever the hell you want. There's just so many different kinds and different genres and everything. Like, it's just so nice to see that, hey, like the only rules that matter are the ones that you make for yourself, and even those you can bend and break all you want. It's just really inspiring when doing a creative project like the ones that I'm attempting to do. That you just have fun with it, whatever you like. Let's see. On the 4th, I read The Jagged Edge Hideaway from MCDM's Where Evil Lives. That's their new monster boss layer kind of modules, a collection of adventures from level 2 to level 20, I believe. And this is the level 2 one. It's a very cool kind of goblin theme, not kind of goblin, like an extremely goblin themed, using their own monsters, using their own maps and everything. And it was really great to read because, one, seems like a lot of fun to run. Maybe I'd run it for some people who'd never played D&D before. Would just be like a fun and classic adventure for them. And two, it's like, 5 pages long, plus monsters, adding another like 2 or 3 pages. But it's something that's like totally achievable that I could do. And so maybe not a whole book from like level 2 to level 20, but like one of those adventures I could start with. And I totally think that I could do one, and it would be great. And so hopefully I'll do one in the future. Because, yeah, it was just inspiring to see that it can be done. In one of his videos last week, he was talking about how you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And this is a fairly nice sized elephant to eat. I also read Lessons Learned was another Making Magic article. I'm kind of just going through. I'm listening to Mark Rosewater's podcast, Drive to Work, from the oldest episode to the newest episode. I'm on I'm on episode like 25 right now out of like 1,000. And I'm reading his articles from newest going to oldest. And funnily enough, there's some overlap in those with the Lessons Learned article, which is a take on his series from really early on in his podcast that I've already listened to, and just kind of condensing it into an easy to read format. So some of the lessons are designs are better when they're focused, do too much, and they end up being about nothing. Embrace your own aesthetic. That was about the unsets that are kind of like comedy focused. Players must enjoy the things you're asking them to do. We make games, we play them because they're fun. That's been the most interesting thing to me to learn from a like larger game studio, is how much control the rules have on the players. That like players play a game and you think that they'd be incentivized to do the fun thing. More often, according to Mark Rosewater, they're incentivized to do the thing that will make them win, even if it's not the fun thing. And when they do that, they will blame the game for making them not have a good time. And he's putting that fault squarely on the design, in that we are supposed to be letting them do fun things. He compares, there was the original Odyssey set from Magic the Gathering had a mechanic where the more cards you had in your graveyard, the better a lot of your cards became. So there's one card that let you discard a card and give a creature first strike, but it was not once per turn. So you were often incentivized to discard your whole hand into the graveyard, fueling your graveyard, giving this thing first strike 7 times, which doesn't really matter at all. And then you'd have no cards for the rest of the game, but you'd be like mechanically at an advantage. And people didn't like that, as opposed to mechanics like landfall, where you play your land for the turn, something that you wanted to do anyways, and you get an extra reward on top of it. So obviously I don't think that all mechanics have to be that way. Not all games are made to be like that, but it's a good thing to consider that, the rules, the flavor, everything has its own effects on leading the players in certain directions. And you have to be aware of that when you're making a game. What are you incentivizing in gameplay through design? And that's all for the articles and stuff that I read. I don't think we actually even have any real gameplay stuff. Yes. All right, so then we'll go to... I have my notebook organized in 3 sections, which is one is on game design, one is on gameplay for Magic on a competitive level or Pokemon on a competitive level. And one is notes that I take when I am actually designing or when I'm actually playing a game. Yes, so on the 30th, I played a game of Magic against some friends, our friend Vin and my fiance Lauren. Lauren was playing the Chainer Nightmare deck that I talked about in the last video, and it went really well. On turn 2, she got an Archon of Cruelty in the graveyard, and she instantly became the biggest threat, which was pretty fun to see. And then immediately after, she got a Terror of the Peaks onto the field. So Vin was playing a lot of Control into the graveyard. They got a card that exiled things pretty early on in the game from the graveyard, which was very useful. My deck was also the new deck that I was talking about, the spells duplication deck. Copying. And it went well. I started by drawing a lot of payoffs and not actual spells to copy. So I think it was turn 6 or 7 before I really started to make any difference in the game, not just building up my own board. But it was really fun those early turns to see Lauren's deck perform really well. Some of our friends were there just hanging out and watching, and Aaron kept on commenting on how cool the deck looked, which made me feel very happy, and I should send him the list, actually, now that I think about it. I'll do that later. So yeah, it's just really fun to see something that I designed perform well, and other people want to play it, and it just made me very proud of my deck building skills. Eventually, Lauren became too much of a threat and had to be dealt with because sneak attack got into the field, and she was just playing so many 7/7 flyers or 8/8 sacrifice creatures. It was great, and I wonder what would happen if it was a 4-player game and things were a little more spread out. But yes, for my own deck, for the Savine deck, the mana curve was rough. I'm doing a lot of 1-spell turns, which, when you're copying them isn't so bad, but isn't totally what you need to win the game a lot of the time. I wrote it here, I factor fictioned 5 times with 3 exclamation points. I cast factor fiction and copied it 4 times, which was a lot of fun. It was a huge just personal win for me. I love that card. Getting to do it 5 times in a row was just a blast, and it really fueled the rest of my game. But I should have stopped there. I should have stopped while I was ahead, because as the game went on, after Lauren died, it was just me and Vin, and they were in a good spot, but I caught up, and I eventually got a loop going where I could constantly end the combat before any damage got dealt, and they were playing an entirely creature-based deck. So I kind of had them in my clutches, right? And I could have finished the game, but I saw a combo I really, really, really wanted to do. Uh, and so I tried to make it happen. And it took a long time, way longer than was necessary. I could have finished the game in other ways in that time period. I made sure to check in with Vin and make sure that they were like totally cool with me, with me not taking any possible chance to win, but only the one that I wanted. Because I had done something similar with a friend Jake, probably a little less than a year ago, where I only had like one win condition. Well, I had a couple win conditions, but I was playing a cycling deck. I had cycled like almost my entire library until I got Approach of the Second Sun in my hand, which is a card that you cast it once and it goes 7 down in your graveyard in your library, and when you cast it again, you win the game. But I realized when I had it that I only had like 13 cards in my library. So if I played my cards right, I could cast Approach of the Second Sun, put it on the very bottom of my library, and then draw and cast it with no cards left in my library. And I just thought that was the coolest possible way to cast Approach of the Second Sun. And same situation. I told Jake, this is what I want to do. This is like the way I want to win the game. And Jake was totally cool with it. And it was such a blast trying to make that happen. And so back to this game, I thought I could do the same thing again, like achieve that same level of, oh, this will be so cool if I copy and cast this card like so many times, that it'll be like such a cool way to win the game. But it just didn't have the same level of interaction. And I think that was the difference. Was I was kind of Vin was locked out of the game, right? And it's in the way that Jake was not. Jake actually even had like a card that would put cards on top of my library. So the game, so that both of us could play this, like, where's the card in my library, trying to get to the bottom without decking myself, like getting an exact number. And it was super fun. But this case, Vin was just kind of stuck not playing the game, and I was stuck. I think they called it. They said that I was playing Go Fish, as I kept on trying to get this one spell that I can't remember what it is. It's a white spell. You cast it from your hand, you get 5 1/1 white humans. You cast it from the graveyard, you get 10 1/1 white humans. And I kept on trying to get it into my graveyard out of exile. I did get to remove some cards from exile this game, which was super cool. And I'd never done that before, so that's another big win for it. And I did eventually get to cast the card, right? And I copied it 25 times, and I got 250 1/1 white human creature tokens onto the field. But everyone was just so tired at that point, and I had just been like playing with myself for the past half hour. I mean, it's accurate either way. And it just did not have the same satisfying conclusion as my other WinCon wanted. The same satisfying conclusion that my other WinCon had. And I also just ended up losing the game because they all came in, all 250 of those soldiers came in with Summoning Sickness, and Vin top decked the perfect card and swung out at me for lethal. Because I was at 3 health the entire time. So overall, not a super satisfying experience, right? And I think that the main difference between those two experiences, even though they're very similar, was the interactive portion. Was in this one, Vin couldn't play. I was kind of just doing my own thing. And in the other one, Jake had ways to combat what I was trying to do and was still very much involved in the game. And it was a back and forth give and take. And I didn't know if I would be able to make it happen. Whereas in this one, I was pretty certain that I'd be able to get all 250 soldiers. It was just a matter of how many I could get. And even when I did get them, they had summoning sickness, and I lost. So just a really interesting game there that kind of taught me about what's fun when building decks. You should have win cons. You should definitely have win cons. And you should play to your outs whenever you can, especially if there's no way for the opponent to really play and interact with you. Because, like I said before, we're playing a game and we're here to have fun. And it was very fun for me to copy the spell 25 times. It just took entirely too long and came at too much of a detriment to my opponent's fun. So I'm going to rework that Savine deck. I'm also working on a Calamax deck that's a similar copying theme. We'll see how those work. My goal for that is to get just like 1 billion lands into play because it has green in its color. And I want to copy a whole bunch of ramp spells and just have the most mana of anyone ever. So we'll see how that works. We'll see how that one goes. But yeah, that was a super fun game. That's all the actual notes I have, but there's 2 other big things going on, which is one, I worked on one of my own games this week. I finally found a little bit of time to do that, and it was super fun. It's a game that I originally had the concept for in a 12-word RPG jam, but just did not make a 12-word RPG. I don't know if I can make a 12-word RPG. I am far too wordy for that. There's that, is it Machiavelli? I don't think it's Machiavelli, but that's the name that's coming to my mind. But there's a famous quote that's, had I more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And I just don't have that trait within me. I just write longer letters. But it was a really fun exercise to do like almost like a thumbnail for an RPG, in the same way that you would draw like a tiny little sketch of something you're going to paint later. That's what it felt like to do a 12-word RPG. It's like, what is the very core of this game? So I made this game during 12-word RPG Jam. I thought it was about like tragedy, about like kings and queens and stuff like that. But while I was at work, I realized that it was more about that those same themes could be built into like a high school structure and a horror structure instead of like a medieval tragedy structure. And it's just more accessible, more easily gamified, kind of, I think, has a broader appeal, and got the gears working a little bit more. So it's very fun to work on that. I won't give out too much info. It's because I just started, and I don't have enough to really put into a video. The big thing that I'm working on right now that I'm kind of stuck at, or at least I took a break from, is that I don't have a resolution mechanic yet. I don't have like roll a d6 and if you get a 4 or higher, a good thing happens, right? Or I don't have, draw this card and if it's a face card, you win. And I'm trying to see if it needs one of those. So far, all of the mechanics are very narrative, and there is one randomized hidden role mechanic that I think would be really, really cool if I could have everything come from that mechanic, where players don't know if they are the like chosen person, I guess. Again, I don't want to give too much of the flavor of the details. But it's all about like, am I the next person? Am I the one who has the bad luck or the good luck? Right? And if the person with the bad luck tries to do something, maybe they die. But if the person with the good luck tries to do something, it will turn out okay. So that'll be something to play with. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And the other thing, I built a D&D character because my friends and I are going to start a pirate campaign sometime in the future. Could be near future, could be far future. I don't know. But I'm getting very excited about this character. So just this morning, I sat down and started making her character sheet for D&D 5e. It's a lot of fun. Still trying to work on the class and the class balance, because I'm thinking of like a bard artificer and those classes don't really jive that well together. And there's a very specific character vision I see in my head that neither of them like completely fulfill. I'm honestly thinking of maybe even going into like cleric and maybe wizard. I have like maybe this hedge mage idea in my head where I have like a lot of low level spells that can be like raised and reduced. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes in the future. But I do think starting with Bard and Artificer is good, and is the way to go. So yeah, we'll see about that. And finally, I'm playing what will maybe technically be my first session of Pathfinder 2nd Edition tonight. I have a campaign all set up for a kind of West Marches style setting and kind of gameplay structure. But none of us have ever played Pathfinder 2e before, so we're doing a little practice combat night where I have a couple combats prepared with the monsters and stuff. And we're just going to like, very chill, very understanding. If people don't know the rules, none of us know the rules. And we're all going to learn it together and see how these all go and see how like deadly the system is and stuff like that. It's all non-canonical. I think Matt Colville has described it as like the danger room, like from X-Men, where it's like this safe place to pretend to be dangerous. And so everyone can get a good idea on the rules and how their character works and everything. So yeah, I think that's everything. Pretty good week. Very happy with how all these things went. I also built, I started that Calamax deck, and that's all. I looked at some other commanders, but I didn't actually build any decks. I think that's all the design work that I did in this last week. Again, very busy with work. Listening to a lot of Mark Rosewater's podcasts. I'm not taking notes on that because I'm usually also doing something else. But it's been very, very fascinating and informative. And it's so amazing that he's just so open about all of his design stuff from someone who has been doing, design for one of the biggest games in the world for 20 years. There's just so many resources that he's made available. It's super cool. I think that's everything. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I had a great time making this. I'm excited to make one next week. I'm excited to work on everything that I have planned in this next week. And I will see you on Sunday. Goodbye.